Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. If it's your first time, my name is Elif, and I make videos about travels, lifestyle, self-growth, and career. And today's a pretty exciting day for me because I have a special guest, Laurisa, with me, and we are going to talk about mindfulness, meditation, self-compassion, and more. So welcome, Laurisa. Thank you for joining me on this video. I'm really excited for this conversation, and I'm sure that a lot of people were actually waiting for this topic because I did introduce it on my Instagram and I got a lot of really positive reactions to it. So I'm looking forward to the conversation today. So thank you very much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
And before we dive into the topics, I just want to tell you the story of how we met and how we are connected with Laurisa, and how I got involved in Mindful Momentum, which is Laurisa's company. So we actually met while I was working at WeWork in Toronto back in October, and I saw her post on the community forum. We got connected through that. We talked about her digital marketing needs and her recently launched startup at that point in time, which is Mindful Momentum. And I will drop the link in the information section below, so you'll be able to visit her website as well. And after meeting her, I think our energies were really aligned,
yeah.
And we decided that we wanted to collaborate on the digital marketing end of Mindful Momentum, and to help her and basically to support her on the growth of her business.
Yeah.
So that is how we got connected, and now it's the end of February. Oh, it's actually March as of today. And yeah, Mindful Momentum has gotten to a point that you know, we launched the business together, and now it's in a perfect place. I think it's thriving and it's very exciting actually. So make sure to follow Mindful Momentum's channels on social media and the website.
Thank you, Ellie.
Yeah, I guess that's a brief summary of how we met. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity, that connection that we had back in October, and to be here today.
Yeah, it's been a journey.
It's definitely been a journey. So I'd like to ask Laurisa to introduce herself to us and just a brief background. And yeah, what is Mindful Momentum, and what have you done so far with Mindful Momentum and your
with your help. Lots of help from Ellie. I was originally trained in mental health and psychology, and I worked for a long time in a mental health clinic. And then Mindful Momentum came about because I realized that there's actually a number of people, you know, that might have been coming to see me on a one-on-one basis that also wanted to have their own sense of independence with it, and also independence with their own self-help, and also wanted to have a sense of community. So I wanted to kind of free up a lot of space and time to offer like a lot of the group training programs, so that people could have like the skills and the tools that come from mindfulness and compassion, teaching them how to practice it like in a group setting and feeling that sense of community, but then also being able to sort of work with it on their own in a way that can support emotional and mental well-being.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. I want to continue with maybe the most basic question, which is, what is mindfulness? And I think it would be valuable to also repeat what the connection between mindfulness and meditation is, because those are two terms that are actually becoming buzzwords these days. And I'm thinking that some people might be confused about, you know, where they differ and what's the connection between those concepts.
Well, I'll start with that. And so meditation, it can actually, is just really refers to focusing the mind. So you could focus the mind on anything. I mean, you could focus on a candle flickering, you could focus on a sport that you're doing, you could be focusing on prayer. Any of those things could be considered like meditation. There's so many different types and styles of meditation. And mindfulness is really just one particular type that comes from a tradition. I mean, it is informed from Buddhist practices, but it has become in the West, once we sort of take the religion piece out of it, is just to think about mindfulness as the intentional use of attention. So mindfulness means, to become more aware of what our minds are doing. Right?
I love that, intentional use of attention. That's like perfect way to describe it.
Yeah, because a lot, and I really like that for sort of our day and age, because so much of our attention is just getting hijacked and we're getting distracted so much. It's like, do we even know sometimes that, we just drove home from point A to point B and I didn't even see any of that drive on the way, So intentionally placing our attention is a type of sort of meditation practice that would be called mindfulness, and it's about creating awareness.
Awesome, thank you. So what are some of the key benefits to it? What do you think, like for mindfulness and meditation, and does actually someone start to experience these benefits as soon as they start meditating or they start doing the mindfulness meditation?
Yeah, I guess everybody's so different. I think some people get it right, feel it right away, and they want to kind of dive in.
It's very, I've heard from some other experiences that some people actually have a lot of difficulty getting into that mood, and meditation is actually a very challenging exercise for them, and for some other people it's super easy. It comes naturally.
Yeah. And I think all of the above are perfectly acceptable experiences. I mean, maybe something that's somewhat important, one misnomer about mindfulness is that it's always about relaxation, or that you would need to have a certain state of relaxation in order to engage in it. And the other one that I find it took me a long time to appreciate is this idea that we're not going to have thoughts. Like, our minds are busy with thoughts a lot. We don't get to escape that. And so if we're trying too hard to get rid of our thoughts, we're probably going to just not have a very pleasant experience trying to meditate, right?
That's true.
Yeah. So that's one thing that we can maybe, I think it's important to, on the one hand, have a little bit of commitment to practicing with it, which is why I'd like to see people come to courses over 8 weeks. But on the other hand, not to make it too hard on ourselves, So it's about a balance between those two.
Yeah, for me, it has, meditating or learning how to meditate has helped me in letting go of things sometimes, and calming my mind, or just being more aware of that moment. I'm wondering how it has impacted you, in your life. I'm sure that you have practiced it much more than me. So I'm just curious, how has meditation or practicing mindfulness meditation impacted you in your life?
I can say the same, that sort of, that being able to let go comes a little easier sometimes, So, sometimes I can kind of be aware of, how much my mind is churning over some stressful situation, and I can step back from it a little bit. Not always, not perfectly, but
it's called silencing the monkey mind, right? Sometimes I hear that terminology being used.
The monkey mind, exactly. Or just sort of separating thoughts from emotions a little bit. That's helpful. Just not getting kind of too caught up in it, or believing my thoughts too much.
True.
True. That's how it's helped me. But I mean, there is that idea about, I think the whole idea about stress reduction, I think is important maybe to address. It's because one thing that I'd like to point out is that the stress reduction doesn't necessarily come from the quietness, but more that with time, we also become more clear about what's important to us. When we set aside that time for personal reflection about what matters the most in our life, then our choices are sort of more aligned with whatever it is that's more important to us. And then when that happens, then we're not as in much inner conflict, and then we feel less stress. So it's more of a long-term kind of stress reduction.
Yeah, definitely. Long-term is important.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. So I kind of know the answer to this because we have covered this question in one of our latest blog posts, but I think it's important to still highlight this. Are there any prerequisites to meditating? Do you have to be in a certain environment? Do you have to have certain equipment to do it? Or do you have to have certain type of music, for example? Like, are there any prerequisites that I'd have to follow to meditate properly?
You know, the only prerequisite that I would say, this just occurred to me now, is to have like a kind-hearted intention to yourself.
Yeah, intention, true.
You know, other than that, you know, like if you're going to sit down, like, oh, I have to get it, or, you know, I have to sit perfectly still, you know, a little bit of commitment, but no special music, no special postures, no special frame of mind.
I like that how you wrote in your latest blog post, like, you don't need pretzel-like postures. You don't need a Zen environment. You don't need certain, you know, smells, stuff like that. I think we get misunderstanding of what we need to have before we start meditating from looking at the images or videos of people meditating. So that kind of does
sets up an expectation,
it sets up an expectation that I need to do these before I'm ready to meditate, which isn't true. The intention and commitment, as you mentioned, are basically the only things that someone needs, I guess. And what about time? Like, what do you think is an ideal time or ideal amount of time to meditate? Is 5 minutes enough, or does someone have to do it for 30 minutes?
Yeah, I have no, you know, special preference myself around that. I think what's really wonderful is when people can kind of get the ball rolling like almost every day. So if it's 5 minutes every day, then that would probably be better than like 20 minutes every other week, right? And you know, also the other thing that's really nice is when people can set up a little bit of a ritual around it. You know, let's say 5 minutes is what's possible. Like, can it be, you know, maybe after brushing teeth in the morning or something like that? You know, like a little bit of an anchor.
Morning or night rituals.
A little bit of a self-care ritual.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm actually seeing that a lot of people are practicing meditation early in the morning, and even before turning their phones on, which I like a lot because it's just like you don't get distracted before you you know, you have your daily practice basically. Which is amazing. I think that's I mean, for me that's also working as well. For me, night rituals are also working, and I guess like I haven't really done a meditation that's longer than 10 minutes, but I was quite satisfied. You can get into a little bit of a daily rhythm with it, and I think you know, like, you can kind of keep coming back to it over. And if it's a day where you happen to have more time, then that's a bonus, right? But, that's good to hear it. I'm really glad to hear that. For me, it's, you know, some days 20 minutes, some days, you know, I'm lucky 30 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes, like, it's, you know, but it's the rhythm and the ritual and the consistency. And 30 minutes right now seems a long period of time for me, but I don't know, I'm hoping maybe I'll get to that point one day. I know. And also you can incorporate it. I've heard people, you know, put their headsets on and do it in the subway. You know, or, you know, like maybe at the office, maybe there is a time when they can do it. I wouldn't suggest it during a meeting, but zoning out during a meeting.
Exactly. But, you know, on a subway bus ride, I've heard a lot of people doing, you know, finding creative ways.
That's definitely a good way to, you know, make use of your time on the subway. That's perfect. And now I want to move to a topic that I've actually been introduced to by you. So before I met you, I thought that you know, meditation is something that is practiced individually, because that's how I got started into practicing meditation. I was using the apps, and I know that a lot of people are actually getting started with their meditation practice through the mobile apps that are easily accessible. So that's how I also got started, and because of that, maybe I had the understanding that meditation has to be individual, and I have to do it on my own, in my own time. However, after I met you, I learned that it's actually a whole different experience when it's done with a group.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of get your insights on like the individual practice versus group practice, and what type of benefits or experiences people face when they have a group practice compared to an individual one.
There's a concept in sort of from Buddhist philosophy about like interdependence and interbeing. It's this idea that part of what it means for us to be human is to be connected. Like there's a kind of a web of connection, just being a human being. And so I think if we leave that part of it out of our practice, like there is the part where we're doing self-care, but when we're practicing meditation or mindfulness, but we're practicing self-care in a way so that we can be in this world with other human beings. And how do we want to be, you know, in relationship to the world and other human beings? So it's important for me to kind of keep that consideration in mind, that you know, when I'm practicing, I want to, when I'm doing meditation, I want to be a better human being. I want to be a better person in this world somehow, and contribute in some way that's meaningful. And I'm not sure exactly how that will show up. Maybe I'll be a little calmer. I won't like snap at my husband or something like that. I'm not sure how it'll show up, but that's certainly kind of part of the hope for me. Yeah. So when we're practicing in groups, or we have a sense of community with our meditation, we have that feeling that we're all kind of in it together in a way, right?
Yeah, that's how I felt when you know, I had the chance to join your workshop, the self-compassion and mindfulness workshop. And one thing that I really liked about practicing with a group was, you know, right after we meditated, we sort of shared our experiences and visions while we were meditating. And that was a really warm connection, I think, and I really enjoyed like speaking about the experience, and yeah, just like being able to share that and also hear other people's experiences with meditation. And I really like enjoyed that sense of community afterwards. Yeah,
and we learn from each other, right?
Absolutely.
We do. Yeah.
And it's also interesting because sometimes we focus on, like you instructed us to focus on something, but everyone focuses on something differently, although the concept sounds very similar. It's like everyone's vision is completely different.
Yeah, we come to it with like a unique experience, and yet at the same time, there's also a common experience. It's both, and I think that's a really nice part of you know, having a community when we're practicing with mindfulness and meditation.
Yeah, and I love that you're also doing that online as well.
Right. So I'm hoping to get that going.
If people aren't in the same location physically, then they can still join the online discussion groups or online meditation groups that Laurisa is running, which I really like that idea. I mean, that's just like putting technology to its best use, I think.
Yeah. And so in those groups, the format that will be a little bit of a guided meditation, and then we'll probably talk a little bit about a specific topic, you know, that's related to and the meditation will be related to that as well. So it'll be, you know, maybe 1 week it'll have to do with like how busy we are, we're so lacking in time, and how do we cope with that stress, and other topics as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm sure people are learning a lot from each other on those sessions.
Yeah. I've learned a lot that way actually through various groups, and so it's nice to be able to share it.
The next thing that I wanted to talk about, and I think this is again a very practical information that people can take and use on their own time, and it's again deriving from a recent blog post that we published on Mindful Momentum, and it was about 3 practical exercises that you can practice at work. And I want to ask you, like, if you can give us like 3 simple examples of what we can do on a day-to-day basis and just blend it into our daily lives.
Yeah. And that's kind of the hope, right? That we can blend things into our daily lives. In the blog post, there were 3 things that I was talking about. There were sort of basically 3 different principles. One of them had to do with embodiment, so that means getting out of our heads and into our bodies. because that's a lot of, we get so caught up in our head, and if we can just feel what's going on in our body, then we know we're in the present moment, right? So that could be feeling our breath, that could be walking and feeling our feet on the floor, it could just be like taking a breath up, inhale, lift your arms up, and actually have a sensation of being in a body.
Even the simplest like exercise of breathing, just focusing on your breathing, I think that's even that's even very helpful to me.
Yeah. But at the same time, I do just want to put a caveat in there. Sometimes breathing feels more stressful, or thinking about breathing, and that's okay too. And nobody has to do breathing. Just like we were talking about, no prerequisites. It doesn't have to be about breathing. It could be about feet on the floor. But sometimes people find that breath can be so calming, and maybe just counting out the inhale and the exhale for a few breath cycles, right? Yeah. So embodiment is one. Feeling a sense of the body and the breath and actual sensations. The other kind of on the spot mindfulness practice is what I like to call separating out thoughts and emotions. And this is something that I take also from my years as a psychotherapist, as well as just on one side of the page, maybe you had a difficult experience, and then on one side of the page, write down what your interpretation of it was, like, that person doesn't like me, they were dissing me, or something like that. But then on the other side of the page, write down what the actual emotion is. So the emotion is anger or frustration or embarrassment. Like, those are the emotion words, and here are the thoughts, right? Yeah. And that's actually, oddly enough, for our brains, for some reason it's hard to separate those two out. And it's when they're muddled up that actually we tend to kind of just get more stress from that. So exactly. So we can kind of tease those two apart. Sometimes it can be very helpful to kind of ease our minds a little bit. And also there's a lot of research to show that just simply naming the emotion is really kind of useful. It's just like it's just an acknowledgement. Yeah, that's what's going on here. Of course, whether your thought's true or not, but that's actually hard to experience, right? Yeah. So that was the thoughts and emotions. Yeah. So the third one of those practices is just connecting to intention, right? Like, why am I here? What's the bigger picture? Like, what is the kind of, is there a meaning, for, being here at work today, or working on this project, or how does it connect to some bigger piece of my contribution in life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think those are the three kind of on the spot exercises.
Easy, practical exercises that we can do anytime, any day. I think those will especially work when at work. I kind of feel that a lot of people need it most at work.
Yeah. We could go down rabbit holes, and we sort of want to feel like there's some meaningful contribution. It's just a human need, right, to feel like it matters in some way.
Absolutely.
And so recognizing that need and maybe stepping back and reflecting on, I do want to make a meaningful contribution. Like, how is this in some small measure? Serving my purpose. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And finally, before we close the conversation, I want to talk about a topic that again, I was introduced by you, and that is the connection between mindfulness and meditation and self-compassion, actually. Yeah. So I learned more about it during our workshop together here, but before then, I actually didn't know that self-compassion and meditation could be related to each other, and that raising that self-compassion or being aware of or self-appreciation was something that you could achieve more and more through meditation, I guess. So those are again two concepts that I was unfamiliar with before. So I want to just touch upon that topic and how those two concepts again overlap or connect to each other.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of different sayings I'm going to bring from other teachers that I've learned from, but Christopher Germer, and I think he takes it from somewhere else as well, but this idea that mindfulness and compassion are like two wings of a bird, right? Sorry, you know, that you need to be able to have. So we could have mindfulness and meditation. You know, you could focus very well, but a sniper does that, right? You know, like it has to have some kind of, you know, positive intention behind it, right? And, you know, I could say, you know, I have to learn mindfulness because I have to focus hard because I'm a no good whatever at my job and I need to get better at it, and I'm no good at everything else in my life, so I need to do mindfulness. Like I could use it to beat myself up, right? And
most of the time I feel that people are very harsh on themselves.
I
think in fact we are usually like most mean to ourselves and most strict to ourselves, so I think that's very important to be aware of and to like improve upon, I guess.
It's so simple. I mean, and that's just an awareness, like how do I treat a friend? How am I treating myself? So that's where, you know, when we talk about this mind that's getting hijacked, you know, we're thinking about how am I speaking? What is that tone, the emotional tone that I'm using when I'm talking to myself? You know, we're bringing awareness to that and just acknowledging, you know, how hard, you know, just being a human being can be, you know, having emotions, having a human brain, being in life and life circumstances, you know. And so we don't have to, you know, we can acknowledge what's challenging about being a human being without kind of having to be so hard on ourselves, you know.
That's very true. And that is one of the things that I'm actually trying to improve for myself as well, because I just noticed that a few years back actually that I was always being very hard on myself on everything. Like even when I was succeeding at something, I was always expecting more of myself, and that always ended up with me beating myself up. You can do better. You could have done that differently. You could have, you know, said that differently to someone, etc. And and then like just asking myself, do I also treat others the same way? And the answer is usually no.
It's like that kind of seeing that inherent worth and value in a person, right? It's even when they maybe have made a mistake or they haven't been able to achieve what they wanted to, you would still see like their value as a human being. And this is like kind of slight difference between things like kind of self-worth and self-esteem. The self-esteem is always like, you're not good enough unless you look pretty or have money or whatever it is, right? Whereas sometimes, whereas self-worth is more like and self-compassion is you're a human being. You are a valuable, worthy person, right? It's not contingent on your success or you know. So
and maybe just like a reminder to not also measure yourself with those kinds of things as well. And
so that's part of the reason why, like, back to that kind of group practice, is like my sense is that we feel quite a bit more isolated these days, and so it's easier for us to kind of compare ourselves and measure ourselves, you know, because we're disconnected from other people. But the more we get connected to other people, maybe in a group community or group setting.
It was so interesting in the group, but when we were discussing the reasons that we were there on the workshop day, it was very similar. Everyone shares, you know, like very similar sentiments and very similar experiences in their own way, of course, but it was very interesting that we all shared something and everyone was there for, you know, a similar purpose, basically.
Am I good enough?
That always, you know, questioning mind that we have.
So we have more in common than we realize.
Finding those commonalities is very interesting, I think, because sometimes we do think that we're all alone in this and it's just us, and we just take it like so much on ourselves, but everyone's feeling something similar to us.
And it's so nice to just be open and honest about
that. And it's a relief to also hear it from other people, and just even like understanding that you're not alone is a comfort.
It's a big component of like the courses that we teach, or just the models always have that. It's called common humanity. So Kristen Neff is one of the researchers, and she refers to it as one of the components of self-compassion is this common humanity, that feeling that, you know, I'm not alone with it. It might be hard, I might be, you know, challenged by it, but I'm not alone with it. Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's a great way to put it, common humanity.
Yeah, we're in it together. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed this so much.
Yeah,
I mean, I always enjoy conversations with you, but this one even more than that, because it was like a recap of everything that we've talked for many months now. And discuss on a daily basis, like some of these things in the blog posts, etc. I really enjoyed it.
You've been helping me so much with everything, like in the technical level. This is
but I'm learning a lot as well. Like I've been helping on more of the technical side, but I guess I was just in the background learning because I was really interested in the topic as well. I love being involved in this.
Yeah, it's been a great collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for listening and watching this video. I hope you also found it very insightful and inspirational, I guess. So thank you, and see you in another video.